Hey guys, welcome back. In today's video, we are talking about AMC going positive, how the squeeze is coming, the AMC outperformance, and many more in this video. Now, we're starting off with what Adam Aron is saying and how strong he is going into the future. First, he talks about domestic box office, the ticket grosses for all US and Canadian theaters for Q2 of 2026 was 2.974 billion. That's the biggest quarter since Q2 of 2019 and the fifth biggest of the 200 quarters of the past 50 years. How many times I've heard some idiot say that movie theaters are dead with a screenshot of wrong. And so what we are seeing here is something that we already knew going towards the end of Q2. Now, of course, we're in Q3 right now, but one of the biggest talks is how effective were we in Q2? Firstly, the box office bigger than ever after Q2 of 2019. What we also are seeing is how in the past 200 quarters it is still the fifth biggest. Now, the difference being now is that AMC is much more efficient. And Adam Aron is definitely giving us a lot of hints about this in terms of understanding how well this quarter is going to be and really how much revenue and profit we are going to be making. Now, this is very important because this has attracted a lot of investors. Firstly, we believe in Adam Aron. Now, we also know that he is obviously going to come out as a winner along with AMC, along with the apes who have invested into AMC. Because what we are seeing right now is how, whilst everyone else wanted AMC gone, he kept the company alive, raised capital, paid down debt, and gave apes a fighting chance. So when the shorts and synthetics are ever exposed, the checkmate moment will be legendary, and we're coming extremely close to that. Firstly, we are seeing that when he talks about wrong, when Adam Aron is talking about earnings, it's because he knows what went well and what happened in AMC. We've already talked about the efficiency. We talked about how AMC is improving. So when we take a look at how well and what we're expecting for the financials for Q2 in AMC, we're going to be looking at a very, very positive note, and we're going to be looking at better than expected results. So this is what I think in terms of he's already giving the hint about what's going to happen when AMC announces his Q2 and the capital that it will attract. Because when we go talk about what the haters are trying to say, when we talk about how people are trying to push the wrong narrative, the negative narrative on AMC right now, despite the AMC CEO himself talking about how well we are, it goes on to talk about what AMC is doing and what they are afraid of. You can see that AMC lost 100 million last quarter, dilution, Adam this, apes that, but it's going bankrupt. Shorts are in full panic mode lately. And we've already seen this. We've seen how well the blockbusters is doing. We've seen how well AMC is doing. We've seen the records that we are breaking. And we see what people are thinking about AMC. When you already talk about institutional accumulation, that has already been ramping up. And it's only going to get even bigger as we see AMC do well. So the biggest thing about this, and it's why we talk about why the hate on AMC is extremely important, is because why the haters secretly love AMC. Imagine waking up, opening eggs, and having millions of topics to choose from, but instead they search AMC accounts just to spam the comments. That's not hate. That's commitment. Because aside from the countless articles that we have already seen that's constantly bashing AMC, despite the fact they have gotten every single fact wrong, despite the fact they have been extremely wrong about AMC in general, what we are seeing is that individuals or so-called, real people, and again, we know it's bots, but there are some real people who are mixed in there as well. But why would you come onto X and just to talk about AMC, and more importantly, just to hate on AMC and talk about the wrong facts when there's countless of other things that you can do? Now, maybe for someone who is just a small individual, maybe you have nothing else to do. But what I find interesting is this from John Hempton. Now, John Hempton, we know, is someone who runs a fund, and he's constantly talking about AMC. We've already covered his post in the past before. And this interaction between an ape and John Hempton is what I really think kind of clarifies everything. It just sums up everything about how haters are always trying to hate on AMC and what they are afraid of. You can see he talks about how I have no position in GME and a small short on AMC. And the apes reply, for all the shit you talk, why not a big short? And he replies that with, I'm not interested in AMC. Now, John Hampton, and if you go on his Twitter and you just scroll through his previous tweets, you see that constantly for the last maybe 3 years, he's been extremely vocal on AMC. Now, bear in mind that this is someone who runs a fund, who obviously has countless of other stocks that needs to be picked, but yet he's talking about AMC. And he's talking about, of course, the one point about AMC, how it's going to go to zero. So if you run a fund and you're certain on a stock to go to zero and you're extremely vocal about it, why would you not take a massive short position in this stock? And the fact that he's then talking about, I'm not interested in AMC, again, his Twitter is clearly saying the different thing. And this is what we said with how shorts are trying everything they can right now to put any attention on AMC to be negative attention. And what they have is, of course, they have short positions. And it wouldn't surprise me to know that John Hampton has synthetic positions, but he can't admit to it, because what we've seen with him recently is that when we talk about how AMC, whilst it was at 130, whilst it was below $1, he took short positions on AMC and he talked about doubling down, and since then it's only gone the other way. So this is how we know that short sellers are afraid of AMC. They are shorting AMC, but they are losing a ton of money. What we are also seeing right now is how Citi says squeeze is coming, not mass selling. So you can see how short squeezes are more likely than widespread selling. Now, the thing I find interesting about this is what Citi obviously has involvements with. Now, firstly, we've already talked about the synthetic shares they have of AMC. Now, secondly, when we talk about everything that's ongoing recently within the market, when we talk about all the selling that's happening, all the liquidations that's happening, the margin calls that's happening, and what this means is that the collaterals are then failing, they are reducing the exposure, they have less capital to short stocks like they've done in the past before. When all of these are all aligned into one, that's when the short squeeze is happening. And so when we talk about how people are seeing that the short squeeze are more and more likely and the fact that it's actually coming now, then it goes on to talk about why we've said that these hedge funds are panicking. These hedge funds are seeing how there's a massive liquidity stress within their capital, how AMC and GME and all of these other companies are now doing the complete opposite of what they thought was going to happen. And we talked about the fundamental improvements of AMC. We talked about more and more capital flowing into AMC. That ultimately is causing the squeeze for AMC. Another big factor about this is the fact that we are seeing how Zach now rates AMC a buy after analysts raised the company's full-year EPS estimate by 22% over the past quarter, improving its earnings outlook, outperforming its sector. So we already knew how well AMC was going to do. We already knew that more and more people are going to be attracted to AMC. And it's why I've said Adam Aron is very likely to be dropping the hint on how well we're doing. He's very likely to talk about why exactly Q2 earnings is going to be a massive turnaround point for AMC. We're already seeing this happening. We already are seeing how people are expecting AMC to do well. But what I think on top of this is that even with all the expectations, even with all of these improved outlook, AMC earnings is still going to beat that by far. And we've seen how Zacks have changed AMC in the past before. And every time since then, we've seen that there was major movements, there was major catalysts involved. And you can see how the fact that they changed this again for AMC, it goes on to talk about why we're expecting volatility and why we're expecting a massive catalyst for AMC. It's something that I definitely am thinking in terms of what would really accelerate AMC going into the future. Now, along with this, of course, despite AMC doing well, we are, of course, going to be faced with the suppression. And what we are seeing is, of course, still the insane dark pool. You can see 40 million of exchange volume on July 7th. Now, this is only just one of many. And we've seen this in the past before on July 8th as well, 47 million again. There are just countless amounts of these calls, these money going into off exchange. And there's a big reason for this is because what we've seen is that more and more people do want to buy AMC. You already seen this before, just like we've seen with the buy target upgrade on AMC, just like we talked about how people are expecting AMC to beat its earnings. a lot of people see this as well, and they are buying into AMC. And the market makers realize that it's why they're trying to abuse the dark pool. You can see how this is going to obviously go wrong for them. But when we talk about the short-term suppression, this is what we're seeing. And 3 times in 5 years, AMC traded more than 50% on exchange. On all 3 times, AMC were 15% green price days. So when we talk about dark pool, the reason why I always emphasize it is because even recently, when we saw AMC having a majority lit exchange than dark pool exchange usage volume, we saw AMC go up 14%. In the past, when we see the same thing as well, the same thing happened. So we already know that the majority of orders that are ongoing for AMC, that are going through, are buy orders. And this is why we've said that AMC, when it talks about its true price reflection, when it actually is allowed to have real movement, it can easily go up 10, 50% every single day, because we've seen this in the past before. The only thing is that these market makers are obviously suppressing the movement of AMC. And another big thing is that 6 years of naked synthetic shares being sold against AMC, they need bankruptcy so bad it's disgusting. So this is why when we pair everything up, when you talk about is AMC doing well? Yes, we've seen it with the earnings, we've seen it with the improvements, and that's why we see the buy target upgrade on AMC. That's why we see a ton of buy orders for AMC. Then when you look at it from a different perspective, is that for the shorts, are they worried? Yes, is why we're seeing the dark pool. Why do they want to abuse the dark pool? It's because they want to push AMC to bankruptcy. But we know that AMC bankruptcy is not possible because we see how well the earnings are. And the big thing about this is why I said we'll come back to bite them, is that a MOAS must come from a stock that was bet to go bankrupt, and then the thesis died suddenly. And when you take a look at AMC, that's exactly what it's doing. No chance of bankruptcy, and in fact, it's going the complete opposite way from that. And so for me, I'm not worried about AMC being suppressed as of right now, because we know, and we've seen this already, because every time when we have lit exchange, that it shows you what people feel about AMC. The fact that we are green on a net lit exchange day, it tells you that that is what the true consensus for AMC is. So I'm not worried about AMC being suppressed because I know that AMC is worth much more. And a lot of apes feels this the same way as well. And it's why we just want AMC to be as cheap as possible, because then we can accumulate as cheap, as many as possible. And remember, the reason why this is important is that the reason why Cinemark is here where it is today is because institution piled into it. And that's the same thing with for AMC. So what we have to realize is that we are in the same position and we are only going to be even higher. When you take a look at what's going on for AMC in terms of suppression on the day-to-day, we obviously have the dark pool. We then are seeing how, these drops happening for AMC. But the interesting thing about this is that these are done by algorithms. It isn't done by apes selling. It isn't done by institutions selling. It's done purely by algorithms to try and push the price down. You're not, in terms of unfamiliar with the suppression. We've seen the manipulations with high frequency, spoof orders, dark pools, tokenizations, FTDs. We've seen all of this. And the fact that it's happening at the same time, it goes on to talk about what's happening. But what we have to realize is how institutions are running out of money. They're running out of allocations, because what we've seen is how, despite the dip, AMC is able to recover. That's because they're failing to get the liquidity to suppress AMC. And you can see what we saw for AMC is how we were down, and then we went up. We were about 12% low of day to then high of day to gain at 22% from bottom to top. This is what we said with how the algorithm's here to try and shake you out. But what we have to realize is that slowly but surely, they're running out of the capital they had before to push AMC down. And that's a very, very big step. And just like we've said, apes don't see a problem for AMC being cheap. Apes don't see a problem when we saw AMC go down 12%, because we are constantly buying, we are constantly accumulating. Now, it isn't just the apes as well, it's the institutions, but this is now a battle of whether it's apes who can buy more or institutions who can buy more, because they don't want apes to make money. Institutions realize the opportunity that AMC is offering, so they obviously want to buy as much as possible. You're also seeing how the $2 calls for AMC is going up higher, and that itself is a very important thing to note. It's because of what we are seeing with kind of the interest in AMC and ultimately the gamma exposure that's there. As always, none of financial advice, and I'll catch you guys next time.